All right, we are live. Welcome to another Practical IT video. This is August 1st, 2021. And hope everybody's doing well out there. And I'm hoping that we'll have a good, positive conversation today. And maybe people will walk away with a little bit of additional understanding. Good morning, David and Catherine. Today my topic is talking about protocols, and specifically network protocols, because knowing a little bit about how protocols work, what they are, and which ones exist out there can help a lot when you are setting up a server of any variety, a network attached storage device, as an example. And a lot of people don't know about protocols, and they just fumble through things and figure it out with trial and error, or they will go out and follow a how-to video or some specific written out instructions for a particular device or piece of software they're using. And while this does work to a degree, increasing your understanding is going to help make you a better digital citizen. It'll help you set up only things on your NAS device that you actually need to have set up. Most of you out there are probably familiar with the advice that if you're not using something, whether it's software or a protocol on your machine, to disable or uninstall it. And I still stand by that as being good advice. Good morning, Jacob. So, with all that introduction nonsense out of the way, I am going to share my screen, and we are going to get a few things out of the way. And I'll bring that up full screen. There we go. So the first dictionary definition that comes back for a protocol, and this is from the Oxford Languages Dictionary, mind you. A protocol is the official procedure or system of rules governing affairs of state or diplomatic decisions. Well, that doesn't really line up completely to what we're talking about, but you kind of get the idea. The original draft of a diplomatic document, especially of the terms of a treaty agreed to in conference and signed by the parties. Again, not quite what we're looking for. So we'll go specifically to what a network protocol is. And yes, I'm kind of doing this on purpose this way, just to give you a little bit more background. A network protocol, and this is coming from CompTIA, which is one of the governing bodies for a set of IT certifications. A network protocol is an established set of rules that determines how data is transmitted between different devices in the same network. Well, or differing networks. Essentially, it allows connected devices to communicate with each other regardless of any differences in their internal processes, structure, or design. Now, that is a key piece right there. So, a protocol is what can allow different computers to be able to talk to each other, to allow them to share files with each other. So let's go back a few years. Let's go back 25 years. So we're in the 90s. A Mac and a Windows machine ran on entirely different processors. They had very different ways of doing things, and they had their own proprietary protocols. So if you had all Windows machines, they could talk to each other real nice. And if you had all Macs, they could talk to each other real nice. Getting a Mac and a Windows machine to talk to each other in the 90s was a challenge. And so back in the 90s, you had things like Telnet and file transfer protocol. And please don't use either of these today unless you are using it in an isolated lab for nostalgia purposes or just for some sort of a demonstration. So the thing about Telnet and FTP is that they operate in such a fashion where any passwords sent are sent in clear text, meaning you don't have to know very much to be able to see somebody's password if they are logging into an unsecure FTP site. Now, how does this play into network attached storage devices? Well, let me share my screen again. If you look at Open Media Vault, and this is an Open Media Vault 5 system, you still have an option right here for FTP. Now, if we scroll down here to services and take a look at this, you can, in fact, have it run under its default port of 21, which is the insecure version of FTP. You do have some other options, though. You can enable SSL, TLS connections, require clients to use FTP over TLS, and there are other options here as well. So this brings us into a little bit of further background. So there are, and what I broke into an, I guess, sort of an arbitrary group, there are low-level protocols and higher-level protocols. And yes, I understand this is not exactly how they'd be broke down for a certification exam, and that's not the purpose of this video. So hopefully that disclaimer will curtail some comments. But on the low end of your protocols, you have two main protocols, or a protocol suite. And everybody knows this as TCP IP. This is implemented on all modern systems. This has been around since approximately 1983. And it has gone through, of course, changes and refinements, and has had things added to it since then. Many things added to it since then. So TCP is the transmission control protocol, and IP, which is probably something you're a little more familiar with, is the internet protocol. So when you hear such things as an IP address, it's very much related here. And of course, there were some older low-level protocols that were not suited for something as large as the internet. And such things like NetBEUI existed on the Windows platform. And then you had IPX, SPX on the NetWare platform. And you don't hear much about either of these today. They're not really in wide use. NetWare eDirectory, as far as I know, still exists in some form or another. But I have not seen even any job descriptions asking for that in quite a number of years. So let's take a look at chat before I ramble on too much longer. Okay, let me go back a little while. I consider it an agreed upon network language. Yes, that's a good description for that. I still have nightmares about editing the autoexec and other config text files in the Windows 3.1, 95, and 98 era. Yes. Thankfully, I did that mostly in school and at the community college level when I was doing that. We were glad to have Telnet and FTP at the time. At least we could communicate. Yes, this is very true. And, it was something that the quote unquote normies weren't using. So I guess that's one of those things where we can claim our battle wounds. And, The kids today, they just aren't going to know the struggle. I miss BBS's, not the waiting for an open line part, though. Yes. I did get myself in a little bit of trouble when using BBS's back in the day. Apparently, my parents had never explained to me the reality at the time of long-distance phone calls until we got quite a steep phone bill. And I think they yanked my modem for about a month, but yeah, good times. I still remember running sniffer software on a PC with a 3COM Ethernet adapter to pick up the usernames and passwords. Yep. I didn't have a 3COM card, but definitely been there and done that. The dangerous 21 port I learned about here. Much better than Token Ring. Oh my. Yeah, thankfully, when I was starting network classes, they had mostly ripped out the Token Ring network. And I never had the displeasure of working with it. So they'd always bring out the cables, though. Those old coax cables, and oof. I'm glad I really cut my teeth on using Ethernet cables. I think I started building cables in the Cat 3 era. Eesh. Seems like a long time ago now. Token Ring was meant for systems that required time-critical packets. Slow but predictable. Part of my Microsoft CS or Master's Computer Science Studies. Yep. HIMEM or EMM 386. So I guess we're saying we've all been around the block a few times if we're all remembering this stuff. I still have the original TCP IP 3.5-inch floppies for Windows 3.1. All right. Wollongong. That's one I'm not familiar with. I know back in the day when Microsoft was building, I think it was when they were building NT, they actually used code from BSD Unix for the TCP IP stack. How much of it they borrowed, I don't know exactly, but I remember specifically them having that. Yeah. When I used 3.0 and 3.1, I don't remember actually installing TCP IP except at school. And because at home, it was a computer my mother had for her job. And it was just, I think she had a modem on it for something. What, I don't know, because she surely wasn't using it for much. So, all right. Let me bring myself back on screen. do this anyways. Okay. So other protocols, and you can see these under services here on the Open Media Vault displayed on your screen. You've got NFS, which is Network File System, which is mainly used for Unix and Linux machines. I believe you can connect to it from a Windows machine, but it is not widely used on Windows. I don't believe it's even installed by default on Windows. I think it's an added feature you have to enable. Rsync. Many of you probably know this is for syncing files and folders between one machine and another. SMB and CIFS. So this is actually two protocols that are many times lumped together. This started off as a Windows, actually it started off a little bit before Windows. It started with OS2, domain level of Windows. And in almost all circumstances, you are going to have SMB or Samba as an implementation on Linux and Unix systems being used today. And as a rule of thumb, you want to use the newest or highest version numbered implementation of SMB/Samba that your machines will support. You get added security benefits and speed benefits for transferring between machines. Okay. How about the Novell NetWare version? Oh yes, NetWare. The good old IPX SPX days. I did have a couple of classes. I think that was in the NetWare 4.11 days, if I remember correctly. And that still required that you installed DOS first, and then you installed NetWare on top of DOS. So you were limited to a 16-bit OS, and it was interesting at the time. It sure was better implemented than early versions of Windows Server. Until you got to Windows Server 4.0, it was kind of a, dare I say it, crapshoot. Hopefully YouTube won't ding me for that, being almost 25 minutes into this. I use MQTT for my 100% DIY home automation setup. Very nice. I've used MQTT. It's pretty cool to play with. There are some really neat things you can do with that, and an ESP32, tying it into different. I'm drawing a blank now on the. Home Assistant or OpenHab, I guess, for that matter. yeah, there's lots of things going on in the DIY area for home automation. My first home server was a NetWare server. I had a spare license for my day job. Yep. I never got my hands on a license for home use. So when I first started doing servers for home use, they were always Linux servers because I could get my hands on Linux for a little bit of nothing. In the beginning days, it was going to Barnes and Noble and buying a book with a Linux CD on the cover. So let's see. NFS is built into Windows 10 Pro. You have to enable the container or restart and choose the NFS client. So yeah. I use ESP8266 and ESP32 and Arduino nodes to communicate through MQTT to Node-RED, which handles 100% of the rules and functions. Very nice. I know Home Assistant has Node-RED built into it. I've used Node-RED a handful of times, and it's a pretty powerful back-end system, and it still amazes me what I can do with MQTT and some of these very inexpensive devices. And you know, it's, I'll say, not for the faint of heart, but if you have that spirit that you want to experiment and have the satisfaction of doing something yourself, it can be a lot of fun. It can be a lot of fun. It is rather time consuming at the beginning to get everything set up, though. I will say that. But all right. So the next protocol to discuss is SSH. So SSH is actually in many in many cases, SSH is more of a suite of protocols. And one that's actually included even in Windows. So you have probably seen me. And let me open up a terminal here. You've probably seen me in many videos before using SSH even without a password. And that's possible because SSH uses what are called key pairs. And public and private keys. You put the public key on the server, you keep the private key on your local machine. And once you have that connection made, it allows you to log into a machine without using the password. And in fact, since 2018, I believe, OpenSSH has been available on Windows machines. Whoa. That's not where I wanted to go with that. Okay, that'll work though. So again, we're at a PowerShell prompt. And yes, you can actually use Control L to clear your screen in PowerShell. On this particular machine, I don't have the public key for the Windows box on my Proxmox VE server, so I have to enter a password. And it lets me right in. So when it comes down to it, if you're a little bit more on the techie side, you don't actually have to install something like PuTTY anymore on a Windows machine. Now, with that being said, there are some quirks of the SSH implementation on Windows, such as when it comes to the location of your public-private key pairs. They're not in exactly the same location they would be on a Unix system. But the other thing you've got on Windows, is Linux, Windows Subsystem for Linux. And this operates almost entirely like a true Linux system. So in this case, you can see I've got known hosts here. And I've got 2 hosts in that list right now. So if we did SSH keygen, and it tells you where it's going to save the key pair. We're not going to use a passphrase for this. And so we could do SSH copy ID home/.ssh ID rsa.pub. And we want to send that to root at .50. And see where I messed this up. Oh, yeah. Because I was already in that directory. Anyways, you can copy the public key over, and then on this machine, I could also log in without a password. So there are various times when that can be useful. If you're getting into something like Ansible for automation, then you would likely have your public keys on the servers that you want to connect to. And you would do it with a user that is set up on the other machine to be able to run processes as root without a password. And the reason you'd want to do that, again, for automation purposes only, is so that your automation script doesn't stop when you are running something to prompt you for a password. So there are a few other things or a few other pieces that I wanted to mention. Part of SSH is that you can have one of the secure versions of FTP called SFTP, which is the file transfer protocol over SSH. So basically you're creating an SSH tunnel and then you're doing file transfers from within that tunnel. There's also RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. This is used mainly on Windows. However, there are non-Windows implementations of it, such as FreeRDP and XRDP. And there's also an implementation by Oracle called VirtualBox Remote Display Protocol, or VRDP. One other one worth mentioning that is considered obsolete these days, excuse me, but is still out there and available on some machines, is AFP, Apple Filing Protocol. And this was a protocol that was formerly known as Apple Talk, dates back to the 1980s, and it was built by Apple so that Macs could talk to each other on a network. When Apple brought iTunes to Windows, for a while there, they also brought AFP in a limited functionality implementation to the Windows platform. There are implementations of this on Linux and some NAS devices do still support that. Good morning, Tony. Thank you for coming in. So this, if it decides to let me log in today, this is the older of my two. Must have admin disabled on that. This is the older of my two Synology boxes. And I believe at one point they did still have AFP enabled or available that you could enable in the Synology control panel. And it does not, yep, and it's still there. So as you can see, I do not have AFP enabled. For my purposes, AFP has not been that useful. I did try it out years ago, and it didn't really offer me any major benefits over using NFS or SMB. So All right. So the other thing I can show here is I do have one QNAP box because a client was considering using it for a project. And again, here under Network and File Services, we've got Windows, Mac, NFS. And there is actually an option for Apple networking. And I don't know why I've still got it turned on. So I'm going to turn it off. I don't think I got around to enabling NFS on that particular box yet. So in an ideal world, what I would love to see is for Synology and QNAP to merge. I think Synology's got the better software stack, but QNAP has some advantages on some of their hardware. So, for instance, this particular box that I've got, which is actually probably my most recent NAS, but that I've purchased, but it's one that I've been reluctant to use for anything major because of some of the security hiccups the company has had, shall we say. The box is nice because it does have dual gigabit Ethernet. And you can bond or bridge those, and that's not the right terminology. You can bond them together. There's another term. It's not bridging. Anyways, you can combine them in such a fashion where you're going to get more throughput. So that is a nice feature. But again, if I were going to buy another pre-built network attached storage, I'm likely going to get another newer Synology. So I just wanted to show that. And where do I have? Show off one other thing here. So I do have a test VM for OMV6. And look at that in all its glory. Has a nice little zoom feature on their hard drive picture in the background. And I will say that compared to Open Media Vault 5, which is the current version, the current stable version, OMV6 is a bit more attractive. It's consolidated and simplified some of these menus to a point. And it's generally been pretty good to work with. Now, there are still some quirks, and right here you can see one of them. Some of the items in Firefox and also in Chrome for some people, you cannot actually click into these. So I did find that the Brave browser does work pretty well with Open Media Vault 6 in its current state. I have not checked today to see if there are any updates. And look at that. Refresh that, and then we'll download those. So it's still a work in progress. It's considered alpha level software. I would not recommend using this on a production system, which is much of the reason that I've got it running in Open Media Vault, so I can sort of keep track on it. I can have a separate set of statistics and summary information about it. This is, as far as hardware, I've got two 60 gig virtual disks in it for storage and a 40 gig system drive. And all things considered, it's been pretty stable so far. I'm not using it for anything production worthy, but if I were to build a machine to be a NAS, this would definitely be a contender once a fully stabilized version is released. So, okay, let me see. Tony says, now you have me wondering if Synology kept AFP and DSM-7. I'll have to check tomorrow when I get to the studio. I've been wondering that a little bit myself. I'm still having issues with my other Synology box, trying to get it to upgrade. I've been in and reset the password for MySQL, and it's still not letting me take off the Firefox Sync software that I installed back in 2015. So I'm in the process of backing up all of my data off that Synology, and I'm going to reformat it and start clean and then do an upgrade to 7. And excuse me, I may very well make a video about the process, or my approach to the process, and what I've taken away from using some of the community packages on a Synology. Spoiler alert, don't do it. But yes, it'll be interesting to see, since Apple is even backing away from AFP, if Synology has left that in or not. QNAP definitely has better hardware, but Synology rocks the software. Absolutely. And yes, you got it. Link aggregation is the term I was looking for. So upgrading a clean machine is a breeze as long as your model supports DSM-7. Yes, so I've got my other box is not as old as the one I showed for this video today, but it's a DS214 SE, which I've had for 7 odd years. So yes, I know it's about time to get a shiny new Synology to put on my network, but I'm holding off until after I get past the shock of buying the new Mac Mini. I had a hiccup last weekend with my existing 2012 Mac Mini, and yeah, I'm getting to the point where I'm getting very anal retentive about my backups for this particular machine, and I feel like the sooner I can replace it, the better off I'm going to be. But when I do go to replace my Synology, it's likely going to be something that's 4 bays instead of 2. And it'll be the biggest NAS I've had since my Thecus or Thecus, however you want to pronounce that, that I bought back in, 2009-ish. Yeah. So I don't know if I'll do the 418 or if I'll bite the bullet and spend the extra cash and do like the 420 plus. I really want something with a minimum of 4 drives. And the 920 plus would be nice if you can scale it up to 9 drives, but I don't know. For what I do with it, I may stick in the value series and go with the 418. I don't really want to go down to the J series if I can avoid it, but I don't know. I'm undecided at this point, but this will probably be a 2022 purchase because I'm trying to limp along until October-ish to see if Apple releases the M1X chip in a new Mac Mini that they've been talking about. If they don't do that, then I will be getting the Mac Mini that was released last year with the with 1 terabyte of solid state and the 10 gigabit Ethernet option. And for the price I'd pay for that, I could get a mid to high end, mid level NVIDIA graphics card, but I'd have no current parts, no current system to put it in. So, yeah, that's where I'm at on that right now. But there will be more Proxmox videos coming. As a little bit of a preview, come back to data center and storage. So you can see that I have 2. I'm going to take that full screen here, make that a little bit bigger. I've got 2 NFS connections from my Proxmox VE server to my 2 currently running Open Media Vault systems. And I will be doing a video or maybe multiple videos detailing the process. I might do one video for OMV and cover versions 5 and 6. It's basically the same process, but if I cover both, then it'll be more evergreen type content rather than something I'll have to replace in 6 months or a year. I will also show the process for QNAP and Synology as well as I may very well spin up a Sigma NAS instance on Open Media Vault and do it that way as well, just to demonstrate the process. Not that it's going to really be useful for a backup, because you get that sort of inflection type of thing. But it's once I actually came across a video that detailed the process for NFS for Synology, and then I applied the basic steps to the Open Media Vault systems. And with a little bit of trial and error, I've documented that process. So hopefully that will be something useful for my Proxmox fans out there. But August is shaping up to be a month that will have a little bit of a bias or a lean towards network attached storage videos from me. So it's actually kind of funny, because I decided to play with some numbers, some statistics and things, and I came up with the numbers that showed that there we go. Showed that August as a month has traditionally been a three-way tie between me covering Linux distributions, various pieces of software, and network attached storage. So since that's been what I've done over the last 3.5 years, 4 years, I might as well continue the tradition and cover network attached storage during the month of August. All right. Let's see. From Tony, I'm torn on whether to buy an M1 Mac. Installed the base M1 iMac for a client last week. That puppy was smoking fast. Kills me because I bought a 27-inch iMac in 2019. Yes, I have set up a not the entry model, but one step up, an iMac for a client. And when I came home, it made my 2012 Mac Mini feel even slower. So I knew I needed to replace this machine because it fell off the supported list a year ago. But, you know, I hadn't expected the speed that I actually experienced when using her machine. So I'm itching to do it at this point. And for the approximately $1,200 I would spend on it, you know, I could get, you know, like a 1070, if that, without a machine to put it in. So maybe a 1080 if I could get my hands on one. But for my workflow, for what I do, especially since I've made the move to using a lot more Proxmox instead of using, say, VirtualBox on the desktop, I can continue my workflow pretty much as is for that $1,200 price point. And I know it's going to work when I take it out of the box. So that's kind of where I'm at. If if we weren't in the middle of this crazy chip shortage, I might reconsider, because I haven't built a PC in quite some time, and it is something I enjoy doing. But there are a couple things happening right now that still kind of makes me want to wait on the PC, because A, there's a chip shortage. B, I'm more of an AMD fan than an Intel fan, and AM5 is going to be, for the next generation Ryzen chips, it's going to be moving to an LGA package type. And so I want to wait until I can get in on that new platform to future-proof myself. But at the same time, when that stuff hits the market in 2022, there are going to be people with AM4 stuff, especially the early AM4 stuff, that are going to be wanting to get rid of it, because Windows 11 is reportedly not going to run on that first generation of Ryzen chips. But Linux will run beautifully on it. So I am keeping my sights on what I know is coming, and so I can do upgrades pretty much all around and still have it come cheaper than going out and buying brand new stuff right at the moment, on the PC side of things. So that's kind of what I have in store, what my thought process is at the moment. But yeah, I am not opposed to picking up some used PCs, wiping Windows 10 and installing Linux on them. Once that changeover in anticipation of Windows 11, and especially after it's released, once people start selling their older computers. Because I've got stuff, some of it's more than 5 years old, that I would be happy to replace if I could do it not at full price. So at this point, to me, my storage is more important than what I'm running on the desktop, except for my editing PC, or machine, I should say. In this case, I'm still using a Mac for most of my editing. I'm torn between trying to do a deep dive into DaVinci Resolve and just biting the bullet and going to Final Cut Pro. I did see a video last night that gave me some ideas on some things I can do without going to that next level. So ways I can save some money. And basically that involves using your favorite presentation program, whether it's Keynote on a Mac, PowerPoint on Windows, or LibreOffice on any platform. But you can build a slide and then export that as a TIFF or a PNG image and import it into your video editor. So I will be integrating some of that into future videos. I've got some ideas to kind of change things up a little bit, maybe make some things a little bit cleaner, and for some not necessarily YouTube projects that I want to dabble with. But since YouTube is my test bed, my learning lab, so to speak, as far as video knowledge goes, you will likely see me learning this process as I go forward. So, look into ScreenFlow. I've been editing with this on the Mac for 5 years. Not crazy expensive, but pretty powerful. Interesting. It seems like I looked at ScreenFlow. I actually started early on. I had bought a copy of Camtasia, and I just found it at the time to be clunky. Of course, this has been, this has been 8 or 9 years ago that I bought Camtasia. I never upgraded it because I wasn't real happy. It seems like I looked at ScreenFlow at the time. But my goal was always to get over to a Linux machine for doing editing. But yeah, that's why I've gravitated towards using OBS for recording my videos, anything that's not live, and I've used iMovie for almost all my editing. I think there's one video that I edited with Kdenlive, but I need to spend like a whole weekend with my phone turned off and deep dive, or maybe multiple weekends, and deep dive into some of these other video editors, and see what my next move might be, to, make the transition off from iMovie, which I am now seeing the limitations. I've hit up against a number of them now. It would be in my best interest to have a different system in place. So let's go to the link that's not an ad. $149 is not bad. Catalina and Big Sur only, so that would actually run on my machines I've got now. ScreenFlow 10 is here. That looks pretty nice. Professional editing features. Streamlined media management, that's a good one. Closed caption support, ProRes MP4, and more. Title library, multi-app recording. I'm going to have to take a look into this. This doesn't look bad. And at half the price of the DaVinci Resolve Pro license. Even going up to the super pack is still, $90 cheaper than the DaVinci Resolve Pro pack. Or Final Cut Pro for that matter. I use PowerPoint to create all my thumbnails. Interesting. I have been using Canva to create mine. And I've just got the free version of Canva, but it's pretty neat the way the stuff that it's got available. So I just have limited artistic skills, so it's that's my biggest hang up for thumbnails. Because I looked at building them in GIMP, and I looked at building them in other things, and Canva just seemed better for that. So much more powerful than iMovie. It seems most things are these days. iMovie has been nice because it was there already, and it was easy to learn, and I didn't have to know all kinds of things about editing and terminology and all this kind of stuff at the beginning. 4 years later, I can definitely see where the limitations are. It's a little bit of a challenge to mask out passwords. Yeah, there are some other challenges I've run into as well. But the price was right, and it was pre-installed, and it's got me where I'm at now. But in order to go from 2,500 and change subscribers to 10,000 subscribers someday, I feel like I've got to step up to that next level in the software arena. I use Cyberlink Powerdirector as my editor. I think that's Windows only. Oh, lots of pop-ups and things. Wow. No, I don't want notifications. Oh, they've got a Mac version. I have not really looked at Powerdirector before. Maybe I'll see if there's a demo version and play with that as well. Royalty-free stock library for limitless creativity. So, yeah. At some point, I may be looking at even getting into some ProRes editing, because I don't know if I talked about it here before. I do a little bit of website work for a local movie studio, and the studio actually has equipment that I can rent. So that is something I may just go in and shoot something in their green room, and which is literally a green room. But something that I have considered as well. And right now, iMovie doesn't do ProRes editing, I don't believe. So, yeah. Canva is very cool. I use Photoshop for thumbnails. My artistic skills are also limited. I believe you can download a trial of ScreenFlow. Oh, awesome. I use the 19 version, not the 365. So, well, it automatically redirected me to 365 when I looked at the Mac version. So I don't know if they're forcing you. Oh, $4.33 a month. So maybe they're like Microsoft and forcing you to rent everything, which I'm really not a fan of. So this is a rental as well. Now, buy now, starting at $4.33 a month. Interesting. Powerdirector for Mac, $51.99 for the annual plan. I really don't need another subscription. I might see if there's a way to get my hands on an older version, but if all they offer today is the subscription version, that's going to be a no-go for me. I really don't like renting software. Has all the commonly used editing features. Look on Amazon. Get away from the sponsored links. Ooh, how quaint, on a CD-ROM. That's for PC only, it appears. Let's see if we just do Powerdirector Mac. Well, I'll look a little further into it. But anyways, I hate subscriptions too. Yeah. Powerdirector 19 Ultra is $99. That's good to know. Let's see, 19 Ultra. Yeah, but I think that's the Windows only version. That's a PC only version. And I'm afraid that the existing PC I've got would be as bad or worse for editing as this Mac I'm currently on. So, yeah, I'm still on the lookout for something different. The reason I had considered DaVinci Resolve is because the guy that owns the studio has used it, and so I've got a potential to get pointers from him. But also, they do have a Linux version as well as Mac and Windows. So Yeah, the one Windows PC I've got here at home right now does not have a dedicated GPU. It's just got the Intel onboard graphics. So that would be kind of, it wouldn't be moving up any as far as editing. It might have more features than iMovie, but it would take as long or longer to render compared to iMovie. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. Movavi apparently is something. Photo manager. Goody. Anyways, so we talked about network protocols and some things about those. We've talked about network attached storage and how that relates back to the protocols. I've given a little bit of a preview of connecting. Well, I showed Proxmox already connected to both versions 5 and 6 of Open Media Vault. And I've let the cat out of the bag that it's in the works for connecting Proxmox to other network attached storage systems. These will be coming throughout the month of August. I'll probably sneak in a preview of a Linux distribution or two during the month. And the other piece of software that I want to review to help make my life simpler is called Heimdall. And I had this running a while back for testing purposes. But Heimdall is an application dashboard. There's sort of a preview of what you get with it. My desire to set this up is really twofold. For my home lab, I have more and more things running, whether in Docker or in a VM on Proxmox. And putting something in place like Heimdall would let me have a single place to go to quickly jump to each of those, especially if I'm using a machine for the first time, or if I'm doing a demo on a Linux distribution. I can easily get access to existing infrastructure on my network without having to install LastPass or Bitwarden on my fresh Linux install. The other reason that I want to test this out is that it could potentially make my life easier at work at the library. I've got some coworkers that aren't terribly tech savvy, and putting something like this in place would, I believe, make it easier for them as well. And I just want to test it out ahead of time before I take it to the library and start implementing it there. But the bottom line is, for something like this, the price is right. The at zero cost, I do have enough resources on the server at the library that I could put something like this in place. They've even got a little video. Can I mute this? Where do we go? Let's mute that tab. But this is pretty slick. It's I would feel comfortable putting this even in front of my least tech savvy coworker, and feel that with minimal training, since I'd be doing all the setup, with minimal training, she would be able to go in there and be able to use it without too much issue. So we'll give the Heimdall developers one extra view on their video. And believe it or not, one of my videos came up in the, or this particular video that we're watching came up in the next videos. Surprise, surprise. So yeah, the current version is 2.2.2, and it is available either to install on a virtual machine or in Docker through linuxserver.io. People maintain that. So that's something to think about. And they do have the Docker Compose already built for you. The Docker CLI commands. And yeah, I may have to take a stab at this in Portainer and see what I can do with it, and go from there. All right, let's look at comments. Looking very much forward to Proxmox connected to NAS. Thank you. Again, Tony, I appreciate the idea. It's something you nudged me about, and I think it's something that I'd played with before, but I never made a video on it. So Heimdall looks intriguing and promising. Yes. So for those of you out there who are married, you know, there's this idea of the spousal approval factor. I would make the argument that Heimdall could score some brownie points on that spousal approval factor when it comes to having different things on your home network. So if any of you married guys listening to this decide to implement it, I would love to hear back and find out how it fared with your better half. Assuming that she's the better half. I know it's 2021 and that shouldn't be an assumption anymore, but you know, these things that have been beaten into our collective heads over the years, guys still default to saying things like that. So anyways, I think it's nice looking. You can change the background picture and do a few other customizations there. And then if you really want to get fancy, you could always dig into the CSS and do some other things at the low level. But I think it looks pretty attractive just as is. And I'd definitely consider this for a project at the library. They are always the better half. Let's not get in trouble here. Okay. All right. That's fair. All right. Well, I think maybe we'll just keep this a little shorter today. So one last thing I wanted to bring up. I did make one additional attempt at doing the setup for CBL Mariner, aka Microsoft Linux. And my second attempt failed as well. It failed in a different way. So, leave it to Microsoft to let something not even fail in a consistent manner. But isn't that what we have all come to know and loathe about them? I mean, love about them since, 1990-ish. Yeah, it's hard to believe that I've been around Windows for, 31 years now. 3.0 is the first version I used. So anyways, that attempt failed. So I'm just going to back burner that project for the moment. And I'll wait until maybe October. And then I'll try again. Unless, somebody else has better luck and wants to share an ISO with me, or I don't know, they actually decide to publish an ISO, and or a virtual machine image of some variety, as a preview even. So yeah, that's probably the last you'll hear about CBL Mariner from me for probably a couple months. But I don't know. I'm going to keep reading on it. I'm going to keep watching the development process a little bit. Once I can make it build properly, I will again bring it back to the channel. But I just wanted to give a little bit of an update on what happened during the past week concerning that, which was basically another crash and burn from what happened on Sunday last week. So on that note, are there any final questions, comments, suggestions? If not, I will wrap this up in maybe another 5 minutes or so. Thanks for the stream. Always great content and dialogue. Everyone enjoy what's left of the weekend. Thank you, Tony. You do the same. And as my father says, every day above ground is a good day, right? I think everybody, maybe you haven't heard yet, Tony. My father's a mortician, so he has a little bit of a demented sense of humor when it comes to such things. There are other little pieces of wisdom he has bestowed upon me over the years, such as everybody has their place. For some, it hasn't been dug yet. So now my father's words of wisdom are going to live forever on the internet, and maybe somebody somewhere will get a laugh out of them as much as I have over the years. He's the kind of guy that when you ask him how business is going, he says, in the hole. So take it for what you will. I, for better or worse, I seem to have inherited his demented sense of humor, and I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. So, all right. Well, I guess parting notes. I'm likely going to be moving my office around yet again this week. I'm unhappy with the way the green screen it lines up on the camera. So I'm going to do another pivot and see if I can't make myself appear in front of just a green screen instead of seeing my table over here on my left side. And also where the green screen is now, it restricts the flow of air conditioning coming from the other room. And since it was like 80 degrees in my apartment this morning, I don't want to restrict the air conditioning if I can help it. So at that, I just want to thank everybody for coming in. I hope you've learned something or been refreshed on something or got a laugh out of one of my bad jokes. Blame my dad. They did not originate with me. If you haven't done so, if you can take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with friends, colleagues, anybody that might be interested in tech. I am always willing to have more subscribers, and I am encouraging myself to try to get those subscribers in any way possible. I did find a rather new YouTuber this morning, I think it was. And he's got a pretty small channel at the moment. Cyber Linux guy, Cyber guy Linux, Cyber guy Linux. I don't know this guy. He's posted a few videos that have kind of caught my attention. I'm probably going to be reaching out to him in the next week or so, but I have subscribed. I think he's got an interesting approach to some of his content, and I'm sure he would like any extra subscribers and encouragement he can get along the way. I know when I was under 500 subscribers, I was happy to get every single subscriber I could get my fingers and toes on. So, take a look. Again, I think he's pretty new. Joined in 17, but been in the tech field for 20 years, 20 plus years. So I'd imagine he's somewhere around my age, give or take. Cyber guy Linux. If you like what he's doing, give him a subscribe. I'm not opposed to promoting other channels when I see value in them. So, you know, I've mentioned several other channels in the course of doing these live streams, and oh, I suppose I should show my screen if I'm going to talk about this, right? Cyber Guy Linux is the name of his channel. So, on that note, it's 12:42 p.m. on a Sunday. I am going to let y'all go and enjoy the rest of the day. I'm going to go do laundry, and I think I might treat myself to a hot fudge sundae this afternoon at the local ice cream shop. So it just, for some reason, it just sounds good. And why not? You know, that's what summer is all about. Treating yourself to ice cream once in a while. So on that note, thanks again, everybody. Stay safe out there. Happy computing. And I will see you in the next video. Have a good one.